Mm.
And I will take care of the hive. I will make sure the bees are fed and healthy and happy. At the end of the season, if there's any honey to harvest, I will make sure that you get a lot of honey from the hive. So backyard beekeepers are always willing to share. And then if you want to learn, you can learn with us while we're working on this hive. And some beekeepers will even sell their hive to you. It's on your land. You want to maybe to get you started, just to help spread the goodwill of beekeeping. So bees are kind of addictive. Once you start to learn about them, and once you have a hive, you realize one is not enough, and you want more and more and more. And when you learn how to split a hive and raise a queen, that's awesome because now you are um, helping bees to reproduce. The only way a hive will reproduce is to split itself. So in the spring, when you see swarms of bees or they end up in your house where you don't want them, call a beekeeper. But that's how they reproduce. The queen moves away with half of your hive, the other half stays behind and raises a new queen. So
Uh,
it's go ahead,
well, I have a lot of questions, so I'm just kind of just absorbing
please.
everything right now. Are you a professional beekeeper?
Well, I'm more of a hobbyist where I keep bees. I go around teaching people, but as far as professional goes, I think of those as more of the commercial beekeepers that have two or 300 hives that travel across the country to do the big crops like the almonds in California or the oranges in Florida. Uh, People put hives on 18 wheelers and ship them across the country to pollinate whatever crop is in season and needs pollinating. And when that crop is done, they pack up their hives and move on to the next. So I don't do that. I have two hives, so we're
Oh, okay.
small.
Well, I mean, I like to put honey in my coffee in the morning, and it would be really convenient if I can have my little bee factory in my backyard.
Yes,
That
harvesting
is a
honey is
joy of
not easy.
beekeeping.
It is. And nothing tastes better than your own honey. I will tell you, store-bought honey does not match it. Um,
Mm.
I'm also a judge for one of the county fairs for honey. Last year, we had 24 different honeys to taste, which sounds like a good idea when you start, but by jar 10, you're like, oh my God, how much more honey is there to taste? You get a sugar high that lasts for a good day.
Mm.
But no two jars taste alike. Even if they're next door neighbors, no two jars of honey taste alike. They're all completely different, and none of them taste like what you get in the store.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I like, it'd be really nice if I could taste my own nectar that I create. Um, but is like
Well,
this.
you aren't the bees gather the nectar and convert it by mixing it with enzymes and dehydrating it, and it then forms into what we know as honey. So they mix the nectar from the flowers with the enzymes, with their own enzymes, and they transport it to a wax cell within the honeycomb, and they continue to mix it and dehydrate and do their bee magic, if you will, until the nectar converts to what we call honey, and then they seal it with wax, and that way it's preserved just like your grandma did with the fruits and vegetables when she would can in the kitchen, and that preserves the honey. Now the thing is if
Hmm.
that wax seal is removed, because the nectar or honey is has been dehydrated to a certain extent, it will start to absorb moisture from the atmosphere, and it will, when it gets enough moisture, it can then spoil. So that's why they seal it with wax that they actually produce from their own bodies.
And one of the things that we look for is it honey? If the water content is greater than 18%, it's greater. We consider that to still be nectar. There's too much water in the honey. It can get moldy, it can spoil, it can go bad. If the water content is less than 18%, it's considered honey. And we haven't yet found the shelf life expiration date. They found it in the pyramids, and I'm sure it's most
Wait,
of you
wait,
know.
I have a question on that. That's very, very interesting to know. And since we're trying to, eventually bring in a honey expert, um, talk a little bit more about the moisture in the honey. I mean, what are you doing? Are you extracting it, or do you wait? Do you test it
No, no.
first and then
The
extract
bees
it?
the bees have a built-in hydrometer into their antenna. And so they stick their, they can measure the water content in the nectar. It's up to the beekeeper to not harvest the honey if the wax frames are not capped. You can look in there, and if you see most of the little honeycomb is capped, you're going to get mostly honey. If it's half capped, you're only going to get half honey and a lot of nectar, and that's going to bring up the water content of your honey, and that's going to make it, more
Which,
susceptible to spoiling.
which if you take honey and you bring the content, the water content up in honey and mix in a few key ingredients, you can produce what we know as mead, which is wine made from honey, and it's very tasty.
Mm.
And
I
I
happen,
don't know, we do have a mead recipe available somewhere here.
yes, I've only
So
had mead once, and that was when I was visiting Germany. It was very tasty. So
I make my own mead, and it is very good. And I highly advise anybody that's interested to grab that recipe and give it a try.
Well, I mean, I don't want to be an alcoholic, but I really do want to try this honey, and I want to create this honey, and I wonder if I can get a copy of this PowerPoint slide.
Okay. The honey is created by the bees that they gather nectar from. So a lot of people ask me, "Oh, so you make honey?" No, I let the bees make honey and I just steal it.
God, that's delicious.
the
something else about local honey too is that if you it's said that if you have allergies, if you have honey from local beekeepers, it's got to be local, it can help with those allergies because you're getting all the stuff in the flowers, and somehow that helps. I haven't studied on that, but we have a friend of ours that buys a lot of honey from us every year because her son is allergic, and she says it's helping him. So
Oh wow. It has a lot of like health benefits too, doesn't it? This the honey.
Yes,
yes,
there's
it's
numerous enzymes and such that our body can use to for health benefits. So the interesting thing to note is that honey isn't the only thing that bees produce that humans use. They also use um, create propolis, which has been used in dentistry for I don't know. I want to say ages, but I don't have an exact number. Um, there's when the greeter came, you'll be able to see the gift. But I'll if you haven't got the gift, I'll see if I can't put it out and you can take a copy of it. Um, the wax, we've been using beeswax for ages, um, as well as the honey. So bees serve a vital purpose for humans, and much of our Western culture has been dependent on our little friend the honeybee, not just for food.
Interesting.
yeah. So whatever when you're harvesting honey, the it's an antibacterial, antimicrobial, antiviral. So it's what I my favorite thing to do is to take hot when I'm sick. I get a cup of hot water. I put in lemon, honey, cinnamon, and turmeric, and that usually knocks out of me in a couple of days anything that I've contracted, and I get better. In the honey, we get because I
Hmm.
belong to a beekeepers association, we get honey sticks to give out to people as they walk by, kind of as a ploy to get them to come over, as if the live bees sitting on the table isn't enough to get them to come over.
Hmm.
But then I steal a couple of honey sticks for me so I can keep my throat coated. If you have a cough or a sore throat, if you find, and you can buy honey sticks sometimes in the store, you suck on those
Oh wow.
and it keeps your throat from tickling. And if you have a sore throat, it really helps knock that down quicker.
So you're putting honey in your throat and you're bathing in it. That's why you're sweet inside and out, Eagle Hamel.
One of the
uh,
things that I was encouraged when I was diagnosed with diabetes was that I could no longer use honey because they're not able to tell me the sugar content within honey. Um, is there a, I know this is going to sound strange, but is there a honey alternative for people like me?
Unfortunately, I don't think that there is, but I'll talk on that for just a minute before Lycan jumps in.
Real quick,
Um,
real quick, a second question to keep in mind. If I wanted to start, where can I buy these bees, and like, what do I need to get this going?
okay, I'll answer that question in just a second. Let me go back to the
Okay.
diabetes question. My dad is a type 2 diabetic. Sugar raises his blood sugar. Honey, if he eats it in moderation, does not. At least he says my honey does not raise it. Now, commercial beekeepers, those that are selling in stores, will sometimes use high fructose corn syrup. They feed the high fructose corn syrup to the bees. The bees take it and turn it into something that resembles honey. There's unfortunately no labeling demands from beekeepers to say how they got their honey. So I don't know. But I know that if my honey does not cause him to have a sugar spike, then you might be okay. But that being said, I've noticed, being the honey judge that I am, dark honey is less sweet than light honey. I don't know if there's a less sugar content in dark honey because I don't have a way to measure the sugar content other than with my palate. Darker honey seems to be less sweet. And I know we always start light and work our way dark, which is good, because if we did it the other way, by the time you've tasted 20 honeys and you're getting to that ultra sweet honey of the light, you'd be going nuts. So, um, any, like, and you want to add anything to the diabetic talk?
Yeah, so the idea here is I struggle with diabetes as well. And I eat honey, but I eat only raw honey from my hives. Um, so I am what is called a diet controlled diabetic. So um, I have not had a problem with my sugar, but I also supplement my diet with cinnamon, and it's a more holistic approach. I'm not advising this. I am in no way telling you that this is the way to go. I'm not advising you as a healthcare professional. I am just telling you what I do personally. Um, I would advise, if you're going to use honey in your diet as a diabetic, minding that you have to keep control of your sugar levels and consult with your doctor. Um, be very careful about buying what type of honey you buy. Only get raw, unpasteurized honey is my recommendation. Make sure that there's nothing added, that it's pure honey.
I,
You can go to a
like
local beekeeper also in your
like
area.
Lycan, let me support you on this, and sorry for interjecting on this, but what Lycan is saying is incredibly important because we have had imports into the United States. Now, I can't speak for the rest of the world. That, not to name names, but it came from an Asian source. And it was not really honey, and it arrives in the United. It's like high fructose corn syrup,
Mm.
syrup, integrated with what might have a little bit of honey content. Okay, this is what I read on a couple years ago. Part of my reason for wanting to see the whole honeybee series of talks take place. Anyway, this product has been bought and infiltrated in your food sources. If you cannot see honey in the source, okay, and you don't know where that honey comes from, lichen is telling you something very, very important. You know,
And
don't trust it as honey, okay?
I
Buy
also
local
go
if you can.
go to your local beekeepers. You could usually find them uh, in your area if you do a search on the web. Uh, but get your local beekeepers, get to know them, talk to them.
Yeah, I think this is a big thing no matter what we're talking about in regards to the things you're going to put in your body, the food in general, is kind of get to know your local food producers in general, right? So your beekeepers, the folks around you that grow your food too, like as I think ultimately, especially for honey, that local, it's local, it is important. It also helps with allergies if it's local to you too, right? So all that stuff
Right.
Exactly.
is important.
And
Yeah, I used to buy a honey that had a strawberry flavor because it was the bees were next to a strawberry patch. I'd never had flavored honey. I didn't know that could happen. It was
right.
awesome. Um,
Yeah, if your bees are near a specific type, somebody had mentioned clover honey earlier. I think it was a private thing. But yeah, clover, very light, very sweet. That's what people are mostly associated with. But I've had honey where I saw the beekeeper, I saw the hives in a field of rose bushes. They grew roses to send to like your local florist. And I had rose flavored honey.